Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guests, Wendy O'Leary and Louise Shanagher, and they're here to share with us their new book, Growing Self-Compassionate Children, a family guide for nurturing resiliency and kindness. What if the greatest gift you can give your children isn't success, but the ability to be kind to themselves in life's hardest moments? Well, today's guests are here to share with us just that. Wendy O'Leary is a mindfulness educator and a certified meditation and yoga teacher with a long-standing personal meditation practice. She's a certified parent educator, an online contributor to Mindful Magazine, and a 2020 Mom's Choice Award Gold recipient. Louise Shanagher is a mindfulness educator, children's therapist, author, and founder of the Creative Mindfulness Kids organization. Based in Ireland, she has a BA and MSc in psychology and further qualifications in mindfulness, psychotherapy, and play therapy. So welcome to the show, Wendy O'Leary and Louise Shanagher.
Thank you so much for having us, Marianne.
Thank you, Marianne. Delighted to be here.
It's such an honor to have the both of you here. What inspired you to write this book?
I think one of the things that inspired me in particular was that I had seen the benefits of self-compassion in my own life. It had really dramatically enhanced my happiness and my well-being. And as I reflected, I really thought, wow, I wish that I had had these tools when my children were younger. I think both for my well-being as well as for theirs. And over the years, as I've been teaching mindfulness and self-compassion to children and adults, I had a book come out that was specific around self-compassion for children. It's called It's Okay, Being Kind to Yourself When Things Feel Hard. And what I found was that it both resonated for children, but also for the parents. And it really made me think, wow, wouldn't it be great to kind of elaborate on that and give parents tools to really start to share this incredible practice with their children, which I knew could be just so beneficial for both the adults as well as the children.
You know, for me, I think self-compassion has probably been the greatest, I suppose, teaching, that I really need to learn in my life. And I think, especially as a child, as a teenager, as an adult, I would have been quite self-critical and quite kind of judgmental of myself, quite hard on myself. And I'd been practicing mindfulness for quite a while, but I felt like there was still something missing. And when I found self-compassion then and found the teachings of, Kristin Neff, Shauna Shapiro, and Christopher Germer, it was really like the missing piece, and it helped me so much, was so hugely healing and continues to be so, and is a practice. And then what I noticed was that when I was teaching mindfulness with adults, that actually they were also really feeling like the need and then really benefiting from self-compassion practice. And I really felt then, this is something really that wouldn't it be wonderful to share with children from a young age, that they'd have this throughout their lives, and that it would be something that they could use as a tool to support them throughout their lives, and that maybe that they, rather than end up, like myself or like some of the adults that I was teaching, really struggling with this relationship that we were having with ourselves, that maybe if we could support children from a young age to be kind to themselves, particularly when life is difficult, that this would be like a buffer or a support to them as they go throughout their life, not to, that they, obviously stress and difficulty is part of life, that it's not about getting rid of that, but about supporting children and giving them tools that would really, really benefit them and support them when they did encounter those inevitable stresses and difficulties. So that was what inspired me.
Wendy, why is self-compassion such an essential skill for children to develop?
Yeah, so sort of tying into what Louise and I have already shared, right? For children, just like for adults, they can be really hard on themselves. And children also experience difficulties in life. And what we know about self compassion is that self compassion really helps us handle difficulties in life. So, those could be sort of the regular kind of day to day experiences that children are having. And also those moments when they're really self critical and hard on themselves. And that ability to relate to themselves kindly in that moment has been really beneficial. And I've seen that over the 15 plus years in my work with children. So it felt like this particular skill really provided that sort of bolster for children to manage the ups and downs of life. I often use the quote that's attributed to John Kabat-Zinn when I'm teaching, and that is, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. And I think it's really important to remember that just like adults, children have waves in their lives, and it's important to give them the tools and skills to surf life more effectively. Sometimes as the adults in a child's life, we might want to kind of swoop in and kind of get in front of problems for them, or help them avoid problems, or fix them, or give advice, all those things that as loving, caring adults, we want to do for our children. And yet what can be most effective is to really give them some tools to manage those inevitable ups and downs more effectively, and tools to manage those moments when that self-critic is really loud and harsh. And I hear that a lot from the parents and children I work with, really giving themselves a hard time and having this ability to be a little kinder to themselves in those hard moments can make such an incredible difference.
So, Louise, how can parents model self compassion effectively for their children?
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. I think this piece around modeling is so important because often parents get really excited about the activities and ways of sharing mindfulness and self compassion with kids, but really, actually, it's the modeling that is the most important. And really, the modeling, Marianne, is the embodying. And to do that, really, it's about cultivating their own self compassion practice. And they can do that in lots of simple ways, but really just beginning to ask themselves, how can I be kind to myself? And particularly when encountering difficulties, or particularly when I'm having a difficult day. And I think a good one is asking ourselves, how would I treat a friend who is in a similar situation? Or how would I speak to a friend who is in a similar situation? And beginning to speak and to ourselves and treat ourselves in the same way or similar way that we would a good friend. And just to say, that self-compassion isn't really just something that we kind of tick the box with, oh, I have that now. It's very much a practice. And what I would say is, as much as we can, to practice it, every day if we can. And there's lots of amazing resources out there, books by Kristen Neff, Christopher Germer, Shauna Shapiro. So we can, begin to read about it, learn about it, and also maybe practicing some of the meditations. There's wonderful meditations online on YouTube that we can practice for free. And then that kind of informal piece by checking in throughout the day. How can I be kind to myself in this moment? How can I care for myself in this moment? And particularly when we encounter those moments of stress or difficulty, and particularly in our parenting. And I think a beautiful question, and one that is hugely supportive to me in my own life, is just this question, what do I need? So pausing in a moment of stress or difficulty, and maybe putting a hand in our hearts and asking ourselves, what do I need right now? And what could help me in this moment? And that might be take a breath. It could be practicing mindfulness. It could be remembering common humanity. So there's three components of self compassion, Marianne, that Kristen Neff identified. We have mindfulness, so noticing that we're suffering, noticing that this is a difficult moment. And there's common humanity, and remembering that we're not alone in this suffering, that part of being a human, part of being a parent is to go through difficult moments, is to experience pain, and that we're never alone in how we feel, that there's always plenty of other people that are going through experiences like us. And then this third component, kindness, which again is just offering ourselves the same kindness and care that we would offer those who we love. It might mean offering ourselves kind words, or kind touch, or even engaging in a kind action. So it's remembering these components as we go throughout the day in that moment of difficulty, recognizing, yes, this is a moment of difficulty, which is mindfulness, and taking a breath, and remembering common humanity. Yes, part of being a parent is to maybe have moments of difficulty. Parenting can be a really tough job, and I'm not alone in feeling this way. There's so many other parents around the world, or even in this town, that are feeling similar to me, or going through something similar. And then this third piece, kindness, and offering ourselves maybe soothing touch, which might mean a hand on the heart, a hug, a hand on our cheek. It might mean offering ourselves words of care and compassion, like, you're okay, you matter, good person, and this too shall pass, whatever is soothing for us. And maybe that piece around kind action, and maybe taking a break, and it might mean getting outside for a moment, doing something that supports our well-being in that moment. So I think that's a huge piece of it, just remembering these three components as we go throughout our day, and particularly in those moments of stress, or tension, or difficulty.
So, Wendy, what role does mindfulness play? Because we've talked about mindfulness in cultivating self-compassion.
Yeah, so mindfulness is such an important component, and it's, as Louise just mentioned, one of the three key components of self-compassion that Kristen Neff outlined and is highlighted in the Mindful Self-Compassion program. And so this ability to see clearly that this is a difficult moment, right? We have to be able to see the suffering, to offer ourselves some kindness and care in that moment. And so often we're kind of caught up in it and in the story. So cultivating that ability to kind of create a little space and be able to say, oh, this is hard, can make such a difference. For me, one of the clearest examples that I saw of this was during COVID. I was on a Zoom call with a coalition of early education professionals. I'm involved in this organization, and they were talking about how difficult things were in that moment. And each month we would meet and they would be sharing the difficulties. And many of these are people who also had young children themselves and were still working in that field during the pandemic. And it just felt so heavy. And then finally, at one point, somebody said, oh, this is so hard. And you could just feel like this release valve of, oh yeah, this acknowledgement that we were, and it actually had all three aspects kind of tied in there, right? The acknowledgement that this was a difficult moment, just the naming it kind of takes away a little bit of its power, right? So naming, acknowledging, seeing it clearly, and doing that with this gentleness, her tone, like, this is hard. There was this kind, caring tone, and there was this camaraderie, like we were all in this experience together, that common humanity. So it had all three aspects, but that mindfulness is really where it starts. We can't do anything until we see clearly that difficulty is happening, that it is a hard moment. And I want to make sure to also say that, in that mindfulness component, we are not trying to change anything. And when we're offering self-compassion, whether it be for ourselves or teaching it to our children, we aren't changing what's happening at all, right? We're not trying to change the experience, to fix things, to make it go away. And yet often in the offering of self-compassion, in the seeing clearly that it's a difficult moment, we do feel a sense of relief because we're offering care. So I kind of equate it to when a child skins their knee, right? And we scoop them up and we give them a kiss on the forehead, right? We still need to tend to the knee. We still need to address that. But just that kiss on the forehead, that offering of kindness makes them feel better because they feel cared for. And so once we can, with mindfulness, acknowledge that we're having a difficult moment, then that leads to those other pieces where we can then feel better as we offer ourselves kindness and care.
So, Louise, how does self-compassion differ from self-esteem, and why is this distinction important?
This is important, Marianne. Thanks for this question. I think, self-esteem is often based on an evaluation of how we're doing and maybe how we're doing in comparison to other people. So often, or it's like this positive evaluation of the self, I suppose. So often it might mean kind of putting ourselves, a little bit above others and being able to think, well, I'm doing better than this person, so that means that I'm okay. And there's been a lot of like research done around self-esteem in comparison to self-compassion, and that can be an aspect that they find when when we're looking at like programs that cultivate self-esteem in young people, and that they find that it can sometimes encourage this sense of social comparison. And in self-compassion, it's quite different. It's about this sense of really knowing and understanding our own inherent value. So there's this sense and this knowing and understanding that simply because we exist, simply because we're a human being, that we are deserving of this care and kindness and love. And really, it's irrespective of whether we're doing well or not, or, it's irrespective of our achievements or how we look or anything like that, that maybe some of these kind of, characteristics that often that society can put a lot of importance on, that in self-compassion, it's not this. We're practicing without strings. It's simply because we are a human being, and simply because we exist, we are deserving of that kindness and that care. And also maybe especially when we're having a difficult moment. And it's not about any sort of comparison to others. It's not about, whether we are achieving anything or anything around how good we are doing in life or as a parent. And really coming back to understanding that because we are a parent, because we're a child, because we're a human being, and because of this, we can encounter difficulty, and life can be hard sometimes, and that in itself is reason enough to be kind to ourselves, to be caring to ourselves, and especially when we encounter those difficult moments.
So, Wendy, how does practicing self-compassion help children navigate difficult and strong emotions?
Yeah, so it's a really important question because I think there are a lot of tools, right, that we can give children in managing difficulty. But the one thing that self-compassion offers is that it creates this like softness around whatever we're experiencing. So it supports children in managing difficulties because when they are experiencing a big difficult emotion, instead of adding that extra layer of being hard on themselves, and of sort of continuing to activate that fight, flight, freeze aspect of our nervous system, which is sort of getting activated when they're in the midst of a big emotion. The offering of comfort and care that comes with self-compassion down regulates that aspect of our nervous system, right? It calms that fight, flight, freeze, and it calls in this other part of our system that is called the caregiving system. And so that down regulating helps to sort of settle the nervous system a little bit. That offering of kindness creates a sense of well-being, again, that feeling that they're cared for in the moment. And it gives them a little more capacity. And what we find in the research, in fact, is that self-compassion supports resiliency. It supports a sense of well-being. It supports motivation, kindness towards others, and it also supports a decrease in some of those more difficult mind states like depression and anxiety. So those ways that we can offer kindness and care to ourselves, again, activating and deactivating that part of the nervous system that kind of exacerbates difficulties, allowing them to settle through the use of self-compassion can really sort of widen children's window of tolerance, their capacity to cope with those ups and downs in life more effectively.
How can schools and educators integrate self-compassion into their teaching methods?
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. I think, again, coming back to that piece around embodying, I think that's so important. So, again, sometimes parents and teachers get really excited about all the lovely activities, and that's wonderful. The activities are great. But actually coming back and remembering that actually the embodiment is the most important. So really for teachers and schools to have to come back to their own self-compassion practice and cultivating that within themselves. So in the book, I talk about or give reference to the cup, and I say that we can only give to the children what's in our cup, and what we want to do is really fill our own cups with these qualities of self-compassion. So with this quality of mindfulness, as we talked about, common humanity, kindness, and both the yin and yang of self-compassion, the yin being this kind of soft, soothing and comforting quality, really being able to be there for ourselves, be kind to ourselves during difficult times, and also the yang aspect of self-compassion, which is this maybe sometimes more stronger action-based aspect of self-compassion, where we might need to do something for ourselves, to set boundaries, and to provide for ourselves, to protect or motivate ourselves. Christian Neff talks about these two qualities. So what I'd really recommend for any teachers or any school staff is to begin by cultivating this within themselves. And then just by their presence, just by their modeling, they will be teaching the children. And then I feel that there's a wonderful space then to begin also introducing self-compassion based activities throughout the day. And one thing myself and Wendy talk about in the book is this sense of sprinkling the day with self-compassion practices. So that it's not just something we do once a week. And it's not even just something that we do once a day. It's something that we're doing and practicing throughout the day. And we're making it a normal, everyday part of family life or school life. So in the book, we talk about these mini moments of kindness where maybe families can pause throughout the day and practice some mini moments of self-compassion together. I'd really recommend for teachers to do this, pausing throughout the day, maybe supporting the class and themselves to maybe put their hands on their heart, take some breaths, maybe offer themselves some kind words. Then later on in the day, maybe before break, or I think recess you call it. In America, we call it break here in Ireland. Maybe taking another, maybe, feeling the feet on the ground, giving ourselves a hug, and maybe offering ourselves some words of kindness or motivation. And maybe later on in the day, and before we go home from school, and maybe noticing the sounds we can hear around us, and maybe another form of soothing touch, maybe giving ourselves a squeeze and thinking about 3 things that we're grateful for about the day. Again, maybe offering ourselves some words of kindness. So sprinkling these little moments throughout the day, throughout the school day. And also then we could introduce some activities. So there's been plenty of activities that we mentioned in the book. Then the book has got, I think, over 70 creative activities and games and lovely visualizations and meditations as well that parents and teachers can introduce to children. there's plenty of different ones, but one, for example, is maybe making the kind friend. So we can imagine, maybe the children can imagine their most kindest, most loving, most friendly, funny, wise friend they can imagine. And this could be a person, or this could be an animal, or this could be a creature. They can imagine what they look like, their tone of their voice, and the words they might say, and what gestures they might offer, and what advice or words they might offer. And then children can actually make this kind friend. I think that's a really fun activity to do. They can make it out of clay. They can make like a puppet type creature. They can just cut it out of cardboard, color it in. There's lots of different ways to do it. And then think about maybe the words that this kind friend might say. They can write the words down, or for younger children, they can cut out pictures and then put it in a little bag to keep with their kind friend. Activities like this could be kept on a little table in the school, in the classroom, or children can make them and bring them home, and they can create their own. In the book, we've called it special space, in the home, where they can collect and keep the different activities they might make in related to self-compassion. And that's just one activity. There's so many in the book, but that's definitely something that teachers can incorporate, as well as maybe some guided meditations as well. So in the book, we have plenty of self-compassion based guided meditations and visualizations that could be a lovely addition, and that teachers could bring into the school day as well. But I think it's just not to forget the importance of their own modeling. That's always the most important aspect when we want to support children to cultivate self-compassion in their own lives.
So, Wendy, what advice would you give to parents who are struggling with self compassion themselves while trying to teach it to their children?
Yeah, that's a really important question, Marianne. Thank you for asking. I think many of us as parents do struggle, and as adults, right? We do struggle with self-compassion. I think it's not encouraged in our society. And so many of us tend to be self-critical. And of course, we do that in for many reasons, but one is that we actually think it helps to motivate us. So I really want to say to people listening that, in fact, the research shows the opposite, that self-compassion actually is more of a motivating force, particularly if we are shaming ourselves. We're shutting down those learning centers in the brain, and we aren't able to learn from mistakes. We often aren't willing to try new things because we're afraid of failure. So that sense that we're going to be motivated if we're really hard on ourselves is actually not true in the long run. It might help a little bit in the beginning, but really for the long run, self-compassion is beneficial. So I think first and foremost, it's helpful for parents to kind of maybe acknowledge why they may have some barriers around self-compassion. We talk a little bit about this in the book. What might be keeping you from kind of feeling like self-compassion would be beneficial for you? And we sort of debunk some of those myths. And then it's really just starting slowly. And what I love about self-compassion, what I really want to emphasize, is just how accessible and practical it is. It can be as simple as just saying, "This is hard," and putting your hand on your heart, right? It can be as simple as, Louise talked about feeling your feet on the floor, taking that one conscious breath. So I think it's really important to start slow. In the book, we have some sort of reflective questions to start to kind of look at our habits. So we don't want to give ourselves a hard time if we're not being self-compassionate. We don't want to add another layer of being hard on ourselves, oh, now I'm also not self-compassionate. No, we just want to gently notice, okay, and then we can always begin again. It's the kind of thing where we know it's not sort of an end goal, it's an ongoing, lifelong practice. So we just start slowly, sprinkling it into our lives, just like as Louise said, we want to sprinkle it in for the children, offering ourselves these mini moments. And the other thing that we talk about in the book that I find really helpful, and personally was really helpful for me when I first began practicing, was having reminders. around the house. So we talk about, like, I used to have a little sticky note by my door as I walked out of my house saying, feel your feet, because I wanted to walk into the world being more present. So it was like a little reminder for me, but we can have little reminders of kindness and care all around our house. Just putting, like, decorating like a little small mirror or stones, or even sticky notes or little index cards around the house as a reminder. Louise mentioned the cup. I actually have my cup on my windowsill, and it doesn't even say anything. Just for me, I know I see that cup. It's like, okay, how do I want to fill my cup? What do I need? How am I filling my cup today? So planting little reminders around the house can be helpful, but most importantly, and we talk about this throughout the book, is to be gentle with yourself. When you're not self-compassionate, just be gentle with yourself about it. We all have habits and ways of being that are socially supported, that might also come from our own personal history and backgrounds, and it is not uncommon to be hard on ourselves. So when we catch that, really just gently, oh, okay, I have this intention to be kind to myself, right? And as I'm talking, I have my hand on my heart as I'm saying it, right? Okay, I can begin again. Just like everyone else, sometimes I'm still hard on myself, and I can begin again.
Well, Louise and Wendy, I found your book to be so empowering. Where can our listeners go to connect with you and be part of your communities and learn more about your work?
Okay, so thank you so much, Marianne, and thank you so much for having us here. So I have a website, www.creative-mindfulness.com. There's lots of resources and free activities, free meditations there, and also YouTube channel, Creative Mindfulness, and Instagram. So if anybody'd like to connect or ask a question, that would be wonderful. And yeah, I really, really value making resources and these activities and meditations as accessible as possible to people. So there's a big selection of free resources there for people, and I hope you find them helpful.
Yeah, and also echoing Louise's thank you. We are so appreciative to have the opportunity to talk about self-compassion with you and self-compassion for children. It is something that Louise and I are both so passionate about because we really do believe it can change lives. And so people can find me on my website, wendyoleary.com. I'm also on Facebook and on Instagram, so people can reach out. My contact information is there, and our book is available wherever books are sold, independent bookstores or online.
Well, Wendy and Louise, thank you both so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much, Marianne.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's been great to be with you. Thank you.
Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.